Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us in this consent and sex work video. My name is Marina. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a white settler living out my ancestors' settlement on Turtle Island from Ukraine, Poland, and Romania. And I'm the program coordinator here at Peers Victoria Resources Society.
Hi, my name is Sarah. My pronouns are she and her, and I am a settler of European descent. I am the drop-in coordinator at Peers, and I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we're on the traditional territories of the Lekwungen speaking people, otherwise known as the Songhees and Esquimalt nations. And it's important to reflect on the ways that colonialism continues to impact the lives of the people who this land belongs to and who belong to this land.
Awesome. So, sex workers remain experts in areas of consent and often have some of the most nuanced and informed perspectives on how to navigate meaningful consent with their clients as well as in their personal lives.
Sex work exists along a spectrum that is informed by power and privilege, and a person's ability to consent to sex work is contingent on many factors informed by an individual's social location and the context that they are living in. It is important to note that experiences in the sex trade range from those of enterprise to exploitation, and that although exploitation and trafficking do exist within sexual economies, they are not the majority of experiences that take place, and most people who engage in the work are doing so with informed choice, informed consent.
Sex work, sexual exploitation, and trafficking are often conflated and seen as the same thing. It's important to know the differences that exist between these experiences and to listen to people with lived experiences to understand how they view their reality. This is important in order to provide adequate supports and refrain from applying judgment, stigma, or make assumptions.
Considering that Canada is a settler society, it is important to note as well that sex work exists within the context of patriarchy, colonialism, and capitalism, amongst many other systemic forms of oppression. And this social context informs how sex workers engage with consent, as well as how society more broadly views their consent.
It's also crucial to make the connection between consent that takes place on our bodies and the consent or lack of consent that is in relation to the lands we occupy. For example, Indigenous sex workers maintain that there are deeply embedded relationships between violence against Indigenous bodies and Indigenous lands under colonialism. They argue that reclaiming one's sexuality is a form of decolonial healing and resurgence against imposed colonial violence and sexual values.
There are a lot of misconceptions about sex work and consent, and there are even perspectives that exist that believe all sex work is a form of sexualized violence, or alternatively, that you cannot sexually assault a sex worker because they've already given consent to sex with anyone at any time. This is not true. We know this is not true. Sex workers are skilled at negotiating what they are and are not comfortable with, both in their personal lives and in their professional lives. Sex workers are skilled at boundaries, and boundaries are integral to consent. Similarly, the Indigenous Sex Sovereignty Collective argues that decolonizing sex work and our perspectives on consent include depathologizing and rehumanizing sex workers, recognizing that they are the experts in their own lives who have the agency and self-determination to make decisions around consent.
We often see responses from the media when sex workers experience violence that they were somehow asking for the violence and that they were to blame for what happened to them. This is linked to slut shaming and victim blaming due to previous sexual history, and it's important to recognize that sex workers exercise consent and are deserving of consent like any other person in our society. Additionally, it is imperative that we recognize sex workers' agency and self-determination over their bodies. Sex workers have the same right to say no to sexual activity as anyone else at any point in any sexual encounter.
It's further important to note that the way in which society views sex work and consent is not an individual issue. It's linked to the systemic issue and a broader social problem. For example, the media often fails to recognize the systemic oppression experienced by sex workers and obscures the reasons of why sex workers experience violence in the first place, So we often hear the media using phrases like high-risk lifestyle, rather than really focusing on the context in which sex workers work within and the violence that happens. The context that sex workers work within, which is void of basic safety precaution or protections. When thinking about sex work and consent, it's crucial to remember we are all responsible for respecting and supporting the rights and safety of sex workers within our communities. This includes centering their bodily autonomy and ability to negotiate consent as they see fit. So lastly, we're going to go through a small exercise that's kind of fun if you need a way to describe consent to others. I'm going to ask Marina. Marina, would you like a cup of tea?
Sure, I would love a cup of tea.
So this is really indicative of how the questions around consent used to revolve around a conversation of no means no. And in that case, an absence of a no meant yes. But now consent focuses more around yes means yes. So what we're looking for is a resounding yes. Marina, would you like a cup of tea?
I feel so excited about this tea, Sarah. I've been
Ooh.
dreaming about this tea forever and I'm ready.
Here we go. She's ready for my tea. Ta-da! She wants it, and I know she wants it.
Oh.
But if she was uncertain about it, Marina, would you like a cup of tea?
I don't know, Sarah. I'm not really sure what kind of tea I'm into right now, or if I'm really feeling it. I'm not sure.
Okay, so I've brewed the tea, I've boiled the water, I've added the milk, I'm giving her the tea.
I actually don't like chamomile tea, sorry.
Just because I've made the tea, it does not entitle me to watch her drink the tea, nor for me to force her to drink the tea. Lastly, if she's unconscious, do you think Marina wants tea? No, there's no way she could say yes to tea if she's unconscious. Now that is from Blue, sorry, I'm just gonna get the citation. So that's from Blue Seat Studios. It's called Tea Consent. You can find it on YouTube. It's a really simple way to describe it to people, even to children.
Awesome. Well, we hope you learned something from this video and that you have a better understanding of sex work and consent. And we're grateful that you took the time to watch and listen. Thanks so much. Bye.